Hello and welcome to Jump Advisory webinar series. I hope you can all hear me. If you can hear me, please put something into the chat bar as people start to come on. Again, it's a very busy webinar. We've had lots and lots of people sort of signing up, which is really, really good. And this webinar series is about looking at development in your business strategy to jumpstart 2021. It's the second in the series, so if you've missed the first series and want to go back and watch it, and why wouldn't you, then you need to go to our website and find it in the news and views section of our website. Last week's feedback, according to Paul Sharp, was some of his clients rung him and said it was the best webinar we'd done to date since we've launched Jump. And as we know, we're very process proud but never satisfied here, so we're always committed in helping improving our webinar. So if you've got any ideas how we can improve it, please send them in to us. But if you like what we do, then please post things out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, etc., so we can grow our audience. It'd be very much appreciated if you did that. Last week we talked about measures. And it was interesting that last week I noticed instantly Bullhorn had released a blog on the top 10 measures, with the top 4 being customer satisfaction, fill rate, CV to hire, and interview to hire. So today we're going to look at the customer side of that and the psychology of buying. Because as I said, sort of all the way through this process, if you genuinely think that customers are just purely buying recruitment, then you're going to find yourself falling on very stony ground when you start to try and sell to clients. So psychology of the client is very important at the moment. So that customer satisfaction point will help improve your client and take them from maybe that trust part to that loyalty part to the advocate part. So let's start to look at what do clients actually want at the moment. What are clients actually buying? I'm going to throw this open, Dave. As always, we want a conversational viewpoint on it and what we're doing. So Dave, let's throw it back to yourself and see what you think. Dave, what are clients buying?
Morning everyone. I tell you what they're buying. They're buying your service. And you may think, what a strange thing to say. Of course they are. I've had a couple of conversations with clients in the last week where the agency director phoned a client and the client said, "Oh, I'm really glad you called. I'm glad that you called. In other words, thank you for calling me. I really need to use your service." I tell you what's happening in the market out there. People want to hear from you. They want to hear what you have to offer, because right now, as they're thinking, are we getting out of this? Are we still in it? Where are we? They want to know what you think. And part of business development is about telling them about what's going on in the market. Paul's going to talk a little bit in a minute about what's happening in the marketplace. But out there right now, what we do absolutely matters more than ever. There's more talent available out there. They need us to help them source that talent. So if you are sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not sure whether my client wants to hear from me, from just a couple of instances in the last 7 days, let me assure you, they really do want to hear from you. Paul.
Thanks, Dave. I think you're absolutely right. And I'll probably just say 2 things from my perspective. One, I've been working with an agency owner over in Lancashire, and that's the right side of the Pennines, by the way, Howard.
No, not that again.
and very, very much working with her about getting out there in front of clients. And she's currently meeting either virtually or face-to-face 6 clients every week. And a perm consultant's doing exactly the same. So we reckon we can smash 72 clients from the other week up until Christmas. And what she's finding is exactly what you've just said, Dave, which 2/3 of her client base are being very responsive and very appreciative of the fact that somebody's picking up the phone. And it's not just picking up the phone to say, have you got a vacancy that I can work, or have you got some business I can give me? It's about, can I come and share with you what's going on with the labour market? Can I come and share with you what's going on from skills availability? Can I give you some data which may inform you in terms of what you do need to do or don't need to do in 2021 regarding your people strategy? So sharing that market intelligence, and I know we've touched upon this before, it's really, really important. And I keep saying it's the starting point to building a proper relationship is logic and data. So never underestimate the importance of that. And we've all got access to loads of this. But the other point that I was just going to articulate is the market has changed beyond belief. You may have seen 2 articles on LinkedIn this morning, one from the RAC promoting yet again that the temp market is holding up better than the perm market, and the second one from the Global Recruiter talking about how pay rates in the non-perm market is actually at an all-time low. So this is a really attractive product or service or proposition or solution for clients to buy. So the temp market is always bounced back quicker than any other market after a recession. It's following the same pattern this time. If you're not in the temp market, you really do need to be in it. If you're doing search and selection, get into the interim market. So it's absolutely the number one market for me is this contingent over the next 6 months. It's really important. I don't know whether you'd agree, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, what I do disagree with, Paul, is the fact that you've got a client that said last week was the best jump webinar, because I wasn't on it, and I was with a client. So I can honestly say I think this week will be significantly better, Paul, because I'm here. I'm not commenting. Just mentioning it. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks for your input there, Uncle Jobs. Let's move on.
Anyways, to pick up your point, I think, look, I'm going to both the points you guys both made. Look, clients do want to hear from us. I think in that first lockdown period, there was a great reluctance from recruitment businesses to contact clients, given the really awful circumstances of the first lockdown. The second lockdown hasn't been as bad. There's been unquestionably, as you mentioned, the statistics, employment has been at a higher rate. I've been on the phone this morning on a Zoom call as well to clients, and we're still busy and still pushing very hard into the new year. I think just to step back a second, and let's just try and remove ourselves from the current extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves in. For us experienced people, and there's so many of you guys listening, you know that this time of the year is the perfect time. It's always been the perfect time to be talking to your clients about what their expectations are for the new year. You know, we are, as of next week into December, we're really in the countdown now to the end of the year. This is normal. We should be speaking to our clients now, all of them, to find out what their expectations are. Okay, we expect their response to be a bit woollier than normal, which is perfectly understandable given the circumstances, but that shouldn't stop us from contacting them. You know, the news, as everybody's well aware, is the vaccines are on their way. They would not be talking about AstraZeneca and Oxford, for example, in quite the way they are, unless they were, you know, as certain as they can be, that this vaccine will be circulated pretty fast. 100 million vaccines already ordered by the government. You know, there's a sense that we are hopefully on that track, that they've gone around the last bend. We're moving towards the finishing line. When will that be? Probably March, April, but definitely you can sense it, you can feel it. We're moving to a position where things are going to start improving. So now is a good time to talk to clients who will be feeling that same sense of optimism that we're beginning to feel. And I don't think that this year represents a significant step change from what we would normally do in any normal year. So I'm picking up that point, and to Paul's point, and we've been saying this for a very long time, and it's unquestionably backed up by the statistics that the REC, for example, have been bringing out. The temp contingent market is definitely on the move. It's picking up. It's growing very quickly, as indeed is the perm market, but the temp market particularly is picking up. And again, as we get into the new year, as we start moving away from the Christmas period towards the springtime, we would fully expect to see that contingent market increasing. Don't forget as well, the inception of the IR35 new rules coming in April. There's going to be a lot of talk about interim labor in the early part of next year. So you guys, you know, you need to be on it. And I've been speaking to clients recently about making sure we're prepared in terms of finance and making sure we have the opportunity to do business with our clients, both on perm and in interim work as well. So, you know, I'm feeling that now is the right time to be talking to people and indeed getting ready for the new year, which will be significantly better than this year.
I think looking at that, I think what we've got to start to think about is what CEOs and sort of owners of businesses are starting to truly look at. And the thing that we started this question about is, what are clients truly buying from us? And I think what we start to think about is clients in before, agencies were in that verted commas, that necessary evil to a certain extent. And it was only because we were classed as somebody who wasn't providing genuine, true value. And to drive true value, what Paul was saying there about what they're doing in the next 12 months, well, they, like everybody else, is now scrambling for data and scrambling for knowledge, and they're looking for all different areas where they're getting their knowledge from. We're talking about getting it from the REC, we're talking about getting it from this magazine, that magazine, the press, etc., etc. Well, they are doing exactly the same. However, we've got one advantage that they have not got. We have a direct link to the marketplace, which gives us direct access to what's actually happening here and now. And therefore, my view is, as we move on to the next part of this sort of conversation, is clients are buying knowledge. They're buying knowledge that we can provide them so they can make more considered decisions when coming to recruit. And that's also about the numbers, the rates, the salaries, the volume, etc., the actual supply and demand of those people within the marketplace. So knowledge becomes a really key part of what we can supply to clients and what clients are buying. And if we start to underestimate the power of the knowledge that we have at the end of our fingertips on our CRM, then we are missing the point of what we can actually do to our clients to make ourselves a more valued proposition for them. And therefore, what we can start to look at is how we start to generate true value with our client and take them from that trust part to that loyalty part, and therefore growing our sort of market share within that client base. So when we start to look at clients, guys, what else are clients looking for from us?
So I'd probably chip in there for me, Howard. I think, and there's just one other pattern that I should have mentioned earlier on. What clients are looking for is going to be dictated by the change that they've gone through as well. And the vast majority of talent acquisition teams have been squeezed. So when the market comes back next year, a lot of organizations are not going to have the manpower in place to deal with the demand that's going to come about. The demand is absolutely going to come, and a lot of people have taken jobs over the last 6 months that they don't want. As soon as they can get out of that career choice, they're going to get out of it and move. So I think it's going to be really buoyant next year. But to answer your question, I ran a poll this week, and I spoke to the vast amount of 5 talent acquisition heads of talent acquisition, and I asked them that question in a very neutral perspective. What do you want next year? And everybody came back with pretty much the same thing, which was knowledge and intelligence. So knowledge and market intelligence, knowledge about the market, about the labour market, skills market, a really strong, diverse network. What they don't value is seeing agencies that they've engaged just put things on job boards and advertise jobs on LinkedIn. They want somebody who's going to be very responsive, respect the process, and honesty. And those are the 5 things that almost every one of the 5 people spoke to said, and they all said the same thing.
It's interesting, isn't it, Paul? Because all of that equates to value.
Yeah.
It's about the value that we as recruiters, as recruitment leaders, bring to these clients. They are going through their own journey, up and down, around in circles. Are they out of it? Are they in it? Are they building new projects? Are they hiring? In some cases, a lot of the people that we talk to are being spoken to by their bosses, and their bosses are saying, just do this, deliver this project, staff this up, move these people. And sometimes they're quite not sure quite what to do. So they need to go to the market, i.e. us, and find out, well, what can we offer them that they really value? And as you say, that knowledge, that intelligence, the data, absolutely. And we should be, as part of our BD process, we should be selling the value that we create. It absolutely isn't, more than ever, it isn't about price now. It's about value. And if we can communicate that value, and for that value, that comes from the trust that we build up. The more conversations we have, the more intelligence we give them, the more trust we build up. And we've been saying it for a number of months, that trust is the currency of success in this market. And the more that we can deliver, the more articulate we can become, the more intelligent we can offer them, the more value we create, the better we'll have success.
And I think one of the points I would really make here, guys, is that it's all about networking. So it's all about making sure that we are aware as recruiters of the best talent in the market, as I always say, not on the market. And I think that's an important point. It's always been an important point. You know, our real value is identifying people who have got jobs at the moment, who are already in roles. We've talked a lot about people hunkering down who are not particularly happy with their current roles or the employers they work for, but are taking the view that, particularly under these current circumstances, a job's a job. It puts food on the table. And I think that our value in the industry, with our clients rather, in the recruitment industry, is in our ability to identify people who are not visible to our competitors and who are not visible to employers. And now I think that point has never been more important than it is now. There is a view that, well, there are lots of people out there looking for work. Absolutely. You know, we knew that was coming. We knew unemployment was going to pick up, and it may continue to pick up. But the kind of people that clients often look for are not necessarily the same people who are on the job market. They may well be people with much more defined skill sets and abilities, and they are, in all probability, still employed. So our value to clients, I think, comes about from our ability to know the best talent in the market, not on the market. And that really talks to our ability to be true consultants. And I think that comes back to the point you guys have been making about providing expert knowledge in a broader sense back to our clients. It's not just about candidates, but it's also our absolute in-depth understanding of what's going on in our local market or our sector. And I do think, and I've said this many times, unfortunately, we are a very self-deprecating industry for whatever reason, and it's always escaped me. We seem to fail to recognize very often that our depth of knowledge and expertise is highly valued. And we often feel that perhaps all we really do is place people in jobs. That's not true. And I think when you have a great relationship, as Paul, you were saying, you have that trusted advisor relationship with clients, it's based upon your knowledge and expertise, not entirely about your ability to find great talent. And I think those are the points that, as we've been talking about, need to be accentuated. Get close to clients, provide them with what you know, and you will find that they, as Dave says, they will highly value the feedback that you're giving them. But it is about this networking issue, definitely.
I think
it is about diversity as well, Paul. I think the diversity and inclusion topic is going to come, you know, significantly back on the agenda next year for me. And again, I think clients will value the network bit, but also a diverse and inclusive network, I think is going to be really important.
Hang on. Before we talk about diversity and move on to diversity, I think there's one thing that we're sort of starting to sort of correlate here together and push together, and that's the value. And we're talking about the value that the client is receiving from us. And I think there's a bit of a mindset change that every recruiter has to make when times are hard. It's not the value that they're receiving, it's what you value in yourself and how you value yourself. And if you don't value yourself, then you're going to go on the call, speak to a client's going to instantly try to push you down and make you drop your fees, and you're instantly going to not feel the value, and you're going to drop your fee. And instantly the client doesn't feel the value because you're dropping your fee. So I think we've got to start to think about separating the marketplace out. We talked about that sort of a little bit about last week. There are certain clients out there that don't value their own staff. And the fact that they don't value their own staff says they are going to be a bum on seat supplier. And therefore, it may be a 15% client. But there's lots of clients out there now that suddenly understand the value of their employees and what their employees bring to their business. Hence why some people have been removing some of their better employees, because they don't give their value back to the business. It's all about me rather than all about the business. So I think we've got to start to think about ourselves first and understand the value that we can provide to that client. And then once we get that value, we've got to make sure that we have a stringent walk away point, because clients will buy that honesty. If you are genuinely going to walk away, and generally walk away because you don't think the client is giving you value, clients understand that, and quite a lot when you then go back and speak to the client again, they come round to your way of thinking. So I think we've also got to have a change in mindset about our value and what value we can then provide to the client, rather than at the moment it just seems to be a one-way street. The client is asking us to prove our value and we don't believe in our own value. So I think there's a bit of a mindset change that we need to sort of undertake, all of us, as we push straight back into that marketplace. And that value that we provide then goes back into that market knowledge that we have, that market intelligence, that network that we can pull instantly from our CRM. Why should we be advertising jobs when we can instantly sort of get people from our CRM, etc., etc.? So pride is a really important thing. But what you started to move on to there, Uncle Jobs, was the diversity situation. And what Paul was starting to talk about was how that is going to play a huge part in the next sort of engagement of the recruitment market, how we can ensure that we can provide diverse candidates to them constantly. Paul Sharp, you've worked quite a bit on that with some of your past clients. Talk to us about diversity.
Well, I think just to emphasize the point, over the past 8 weeks, I've worked with, I think, 4 different agencies on 4 different bids. And this is PSL's bid work. And every one of the bids has asked 2 or 3 quite in-depth, detailed questions about diversity and inclusion. And as I said, you know, from the 5 people that I asked within my network yesterday, they were all saying that was going to be very important. So I just want to re-emphasize that. I think it's key. I think it's about, it depends on your client base, and you know, you'll go hunting and networking in different ways, depending upon the skills, and you know, the people that you're looking for and recruiting for within your client. But I asked this simple question: if you're on the call now and you're asked to write a bid for a client that you really want to do business with, what evidence have you got? Real evidence, not you know, just you're telling a story. What real evidence have you got that either you or your consultants broaden out their network in a really diverse and inclusive way? And if you can't answer that question, then that's your action, is to start to think about how you broaden it out from a diversity and inclusive perspective.
I think to add to that, Paul, you said earlier on that I think we all agree that the contract interim market will come back before the perm market. I think many business leaders associate diversity with permanent hires. Whereas if you're looking at the total talent management, which you spoke about earlier, that is all hires. So therefore, diversity still matters if you're providing interim candidates and contract candidates. There are some areas of our client base where they just want people now.
100%.
Many of our clients are also thinking, actually, we need to open this up. This is a much wider discussion, and it applies to contract and perm. So I would just encourage people to add to Paul's point. If you're thinking diversity only equals perm, it doesn't. It matters across the whole workforce.
Okay, I think as we look at that, Dave, you know, we're talking about temps, we're talking about contract, we're talking about IR35 coming in and things like that. If you start to think about taking on a temp or a contract labor for a long period of time, how they impact your business is really important, and therefore that behavioral side of that is really important. Also the diversity side, because when a big client comes to look at what they're doing and they're putting a tender in, they're not looking at the diversity of just the perm, they're looking at the diversity of everybody that's working in that business. So it is right across the temp, perm, contract line all the way through. So that diversity becomes a real key, as does the inclusion side. It's interesting, sort of, my son's just been going through trying to find himself a job, and my son's dyspraxic, and it's very interesting when they talk about diversity inclusion, how many companies had not a clue what he was talking about from a dyspraxia point of view, etc., and trying to explain it, and how they just couldn't cope with what his needs were to actually be part of their team. And it was interesting that we talk about the big players will look at diversity. Well, this is now trickling down into the whole marketplace. It's not just a big player situation, it's an everyday life situation for every employee. And it was interesting, it was the smaller companies that had a better handle on diversity than some of the larger companies. So again, what they're doing is they're going to buy your market knowledge of that product and what's going on, what's actually available out there in the marketplace. And diversity doesn't mean to say that it's not about placing the best candidate for the job. It's about providing opportunities for all to take that position, etc. And as long as you can prove your diversity recruitment process, then you're in a far better position than you were before.
And I think that just to add to that point, H, a question from 2 bids in the last few months. How demonstrate, please, how diverse is your supply chain?
Yeah.
And we are part of that supply chain, and we have to demonstrate it on behalf of the clients who are being asked to demonstrate it for projects they're winning.
And just a point here, my son is on the verge of, with his partners, launching a new business which is all about diversity and inclusion. And of course, we've seen, without going into lots of detail, tremendous amount of publicity around and news around this whole subject. And it's not just a question, in my opinion, of being, aware of the situation and keeping up with it. I actually think we as an industry should be at the vanguard, should be very much at the forefront of promoting inclusion and diversity, and not be shy to do that, not be shy to have those sometimes uncomfortable, difficult conversations with clients. So yeah, absolutely.
So I think
that's where the data comes in for me, and that there are things you can do. Again, I've been working with a couple of agencies over the past couple of weeks about using marketing and data to go and present this all this intelligence, market intelligence, thought leadership. There are things you can do. It's a bit hard on the inclusive side, but things like gender, you can fairly easily go to a client on LinkedIn and work out what their gender split is. You can compare them to their competitors to see whether they're better or worse. You can take some of your ratios and stats and work out whether your diverse and inclusive candidates are getting through the recruitment process. You can benchmark that data then against other clients. There's loads of things you can do about using data to sit down with a client and have a really informative, intelligent but consultative discussion about the recruitment market, not just about vacancies.
And what that all does is very, very simple, is what we're trying to do for our client. What we try and do is give our client time, give time back to clients, because that's the only thing that they cannot get back ever anywhere is time. But the other thing we're trying to give the client is peace of mind. So what we're talking about, all the market intelligence that we're giving them, all the diversity information that we're giving extra, is all giving our client peace of mind. And it gives them peace of mind that we can actually give them a solution to what they want. So we need to be clear in what we actually clients want to buy from you, or why would clients buy from you. And that's the important thing. So we're sort of talking about, what are clients wanting to buy? But the question then sort of moves into, why would your client buy from you?
Okay, so Howard, I just want to pick up on a very important point you've made here, which is you state, and I think we talked about, it's just the gift of time. So I'm gonna sort of almost bounce that back and say what we need as recruiters is the gift of time. And we've been talking a lot over the last 6-7 months about moving from the whole contingent piece towards more exclusive retained opportunities. Why? Well, for obvious reasons. It guarantees us pretty much a one-on-one vacancy to placement ratio, but it also, very importantly, gives us the opportunity to do our jobs professionally, instead of being in a position where we're in a race to send CVs, which of course is really very much the hallmark of our industry sector, or industry rather, over the last 10 years or so. What we want is the time to be proper search and selection consultants. And that comes back to my earlier point around the networking issue about finding the best candidates in the market and not on the market. So we need the gift of time. We get that when we agree retained exclusive opportunities with our clients. And I think that for me, even though the clients don't necessarily understand the value at this stage. That's another reason why between now and as we move out of into the new year, between now and that point, we should be having conversations with our warm, trusted clients, particularly about the fact that when they next have a vacancy, not when they have a vacancy, but when they next have a vacancy, we want to be working with them on that exclusive retained basis in order for us to be able to find the very best candidates in the market. And I feel this is a very important transition period for us as an industry.
Back to the question then, why would your clients buy from you? And it's a really important question to sort of consider as an agency. Why would your clients buy from you? They have lots and lots of choice out there. So what are they actually buying? Dave, I'm going to throw that up to you.
It sounds like an almost a pithy response in saying they are buying you. The only thing that they have a trusted relationship with is you or your consultant or you as the business owner. They've had in the past perhaps a relationship with you, or they've seen your brand or they've seen your company and they have a thought. Actually, this is a person, this is a brand, this is a company I can do business with. So they're buying into all of that. Of course, they're buying into the data, the intelligence, the fact that you can find the right candidate in a timely manner, but they're really buying you. And recruitment, we've always said this, and this almost sounds like a really obvious point, but it is about people, we know that, and it's about ourselves. And that engagement that we have with them is what matters more importantly. Out of crises come much stronger organizations, much stronger nations, much stronger ability to work together, much stronger collaboration. If you look through history, the immediate period after tough times has been really strong times. So that trusted relationship that you have with your client is what they want to hear from and what they want to buy.
I think for me, it's about if they're buying you, then they're not buying somebody else. And I think, one of the key challenges is how you stand out in your local market, and how do you drive a bigger wedge between, you and your competitors, and, what are the techniques or the technologies out there that you can embrace that are going to be a little bit different? How can you, do something around, making sure the client's a better fit than maybe your competitors? There's loads of tech. I mean, we've seen an explosion in technology in the last 6 months. I think it's about embracing some of these technologies and about trying to stand out in your local market. And this is where I think there's a massive opportunity. And clients will buy that. And if you're not doing something different, if they were paying 15% for a placement last year, then why should they pay 15% for a placement this year? What is it about your service that's going to be a little bit different, and how you're going to be more memorable than what you were in the past? I think that's a really key question for me.
I think it always comes down to your points, guys, about relationships. Always has done, always will do. But I think allied to that, you've got to be looking at your marketing, your positioning, because candidate attraction, despite the volume of people looking for jobs, still it remains extremely important, dependent on your sector and the skill sets that you're seeking. So I think these things also make you stand out. So also I think having the courage of your convictions. So, that means I feel making a commitment to being different, to standing by your belief systems. That applies not only to the way you conduct yourself with your clients, but the behaviors and values within your organization. So the EVP, as we always talk about, employer value proposition, kind of comes in here. Creating that separation is not as difficult as people sometimes think. And, we always talk about it, but it does come down to detail. It always comes down to detail. And it always comes down to really having a heartfelt belief in providing an unbelievably good customer service. I mean, unbelievably good customer service. And it doesn't take a huge amount to stand out from the crowd when your focal point is providing a situation for your clients where they are not just pleased with the service they receive, but thrilled with the service they receive. That alone will give you the edge over your competitors. let alone the innovations that we've been talking about over the last 6 or 7 months, and the new things, as you've just said, Paul, coming around the block in terms of the technological changes we can expect. If you keep at the heart of your business the absolute view that your clients should be absolutely overwhelmingly thrilled with what you provide, your people, then you already have an edge, because unfortunately, as in any industry sector, we are surrounded by often a mediocrity. A lot of people in the industry are mediocre. They provide candidates and that's it, folks. Well, fine, but that isn't going to cut it in the future. You need to be a proper consultant who is very aligned to what your customers are seeking in every sense, and that is underlined by the detail and the care and consideration you provide to your people.
This goes back to that simple thing that clients buy, and it goes back to that simple sort of nature and human nature. It's that emotional connection between you and your client. And if you have a true emotional connection between you and your client, then you start to find that that value proposition starts to creep in more. And again, so often, recruitment is bashed quite heavily by certain clients, and they're bashed because that client has no emotional connection with an agency, because all they're using is the agency as, something that they feel that they have to use. It's not something they want to use, etc. We need to change that thought process in our client. And I sometimes think once we start to understand what the client's true issues are, then we start to create a more emotional connection with the client. If we can help the client move things down the line, if we can help the client create better opportunities for themselves and for their people within there, then we start to move ourselves more down that emotional route than just that transactional route. And so understanding what's keeping them awake at night, understanding what they are doing at work and how that's making them feel, their employees feel, how it's making their clients feel, is really important, because at the moment it's a very touchy-feely world. And what we started to find is that clients are now seeing the fragility of their client base as agencies are seeing the fragility of their client base. And it's purely because we haven't got an emotional connection with our client. So if you're scared of doing BD now, even calling your own current client base, it's because you haven't got that emotional connection. And therefore clients will buy that emotional connection, that they understand what you're delivering to them, but from a heartfelt point of view, rather than just a transactional, I want to make money out of you client point of view. And I think that's a real differentiator to where we were pre-lockdown to where we're going to be post-lockdown, how we are going to emotionally connect with our marketplace to drive our value proposition up and move that up the chain. We've talked all the way through lockdown about being honest and authentic to yourself and not chasing the money. It's about delivery. And if we go back to that thought process, it is about delivery to our client base. And if we deliver with purpose, then all of a sudden we'll start to generate money, because that's what happens. If we just go chasing the money, we will drive our clients away, or we'll get our pants well and truly taken down on fees and margin, which is something obviously that none of us actually want to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I think for me, Howard, I think it comes back to that consultative bit. And I think it's how do you stand out? So if you're, working, 2 or 3 perm roles or just 1 perm role for a client, do you go back after you've made the placement, do you go back to that client and share with them all the market intelligence about the 20 other candidates that you spoke to, where they came from, what the background were, what they were saying about them as an employer, why they were wedded to the organization that where they were working, or why they were thinking about moving on. So it's all that intelligence, it's that consultative bit. And I think, particularly on the perm side, I think the boundaries for me are being merged between sort of search and selection and contingent perm delivery. And I think it's about trying to understand how can we steal some of what they do in that search and selection sort of sector and adapt that more for traditional sort of perm recruitment. It's got to be wrapped up. The service has got to be expanded. Otherwise, you will always be beaten over the head on your margin and your fees. You've got to do something different.
Paul, can I just pick up on a point here? And this may not be in the right order, because I see Howard scowling at me because I stepped away from the question. But I know we're running out of time, and I want to make a very, I hope, an important point. So we talk a lot about providing consultative services. We talk a lot about moving away from contingent recruitment into retained exclusive and so on, all of which tick, 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 everybody agrees with, right? Problem we've got, I was talking to you guys about this the other day, is our people, and that includes some of us listening today, are hardwired to sell contingent recruitment, hardwired. We've been doing it since the last king died. So to expect our people to suddenly change the way they think and be able to sell the benefits of retained exclusive business to our client base is not an easy ask. And what it requires is a tremendous amount of training and coaching. We have to change the way in which our people and we approach recruitment and the way that we put across our services. Now,
100%.
I think that, I said to you guys the other day, I did some role plays with one of my clients in Scotland last week with some of their consultants, very senior consultants too, who did great. But, there's work to be done. We did some great feedback afterwards. These are people that have been in the business for 10, 15 years. And they were still a bit woolly around how they sold. And I was the client in this situation, how they sold retained exclusive business. These are not inexperienced people. Now, if you then come back to people that have only been in the industry a relatively short period of time, to expect them to sell these differences because you've had as a leader the conversation, look, we're going to do this and let's get out there and do it, it's just delusional. They need help, they need assistance, they need coaching. And we'll talk about this in a moment, but I think that's what's required to create the differential.
So I think before we flip on, and I want to sort of bring Dave into this, I agree with what both Pauls are saying there, but I also think we're missing half the market. We should also be having that conversation with every candidate that we put forward to that job, taking that market intelligence back to them. Because if they then take that market intelligence to get another job elsewhere, where have you got that from? I got it from XYZ agency. Then we start to penetrate the market a little bit further. Before we move on to Dave, because I want Dave to put this question in, I'm going to put a little poll up. I hope it works, just so people can answer it, and then we'll close the poll at the end, and we're going to start to use the data from there. So it's technology on Zoom. The poll situation is always a bit of a hit and miss job. So let's see what we can do. So I'm going to launch the poll. So if you want to sort of answer it, feel free to answer it, and we'll bring you the answers at the end.
That is POLL, isn't it, Howard? I just want to be completely clear on that point.
I've no idea what you're talking about, Paul. Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to say that people will do what they're rewarded to do. So if we've got consultants that are selling contingent work, then that's what they'll do, if that's how they're rewarded. If they need some training on how to sell retained work, that's something we can help with. But if they are rewarded to sell retained work, you know what? Surprisingly, they will do it.
Good point.
Yeah. Most of the sales forces that I've been involved and been fortunate enough to manage, they have done what exactly they're rewarded to do. And our clients out there need the right people in a timely manner. And there's an opportunity here as the market recovers to really go for it. And that includes all of those different services, one of which is retained. So if you reward them to sell what you want them to sell, to engage with your customers in the way you want them to engage, you will find you'll have success.
100% right. Bonus plans provoke behaviors, and that's a fact. It's always been a fact. That's a very good point.
But whereas bonus plans provoke behavior, the value from the owner of the business provides the purpose. And that is what the client will be buying at the end of the day. They'll buy the value, but they'll buy your purpose if you're delivering the right purpose. Yes. So it's a mixture of both and getting them both Absolutely. Right. Don't just rely on, I've changed my bonus plan, therefore it's going to change behaviors. You've got to drive behaviors as a manager to change behavior. And that's driving it all the way down the chain. So from yourself to your consultants, out to your clients, out to your candidates, and then it comes all the way back again. So you've got to start to look at it in that way. So what clients are buying aren't simply the flippant answer recruitment. Clients are buying a whole lot more than just simple recruitment. And that's what we've got to get our heads round, that when we go onto a BD call, that is what we're selling. We're not just selling a recruitment service. We are selling so much more, whether that be a subliminal or whether that be an outward attack to our client. It is whatever it is. So as I'm just going to end the poll, so I can just, I'm going to end the poll and just so we can throw the results up. So I'm going to share the results with everybody. So I hope people can see that. So what it looks like that is February, January, February is pretty even, but people are expecting March and April to when the market starts to come back. And if the government are saying what their government are saying with regards to having 100,000 vaccine, have that rolled out by the end of Easter, which if they do, great, then it says that March and April. But what that means is that we need to be preparing now for that. That's 3-4 months away. And I always say 90-day cycles, we go in 90-day cycles. So we've got to start to prepare for that now to make sure that we are, A, we have the right client base, B, we have the right candidate base, and C, we have the right delivery mechanism and the people that can deliver that back to the people. So as we wind up, guys, because we're getting to the end of our 45 minutes, and it's one of those sort of webinars where we think that we could sort of go on forever. Next week's webinar, we're going to look at that great things. How do we take on the big boys? What do we look at? Can we give RPO, statements of work, additional recruitment services? What can we sell to the clients to actually take on the big boys? So we're going to start to get really down into the nitty-gritty of that. We've talked today a lot about value and the selling of value. And as I said, we'd like to talk to you, if you would like to talk to us about training and delivering a better solution to your client, either selling retained or selling exclusive business, then please get in contact with us. We customize our training courses for each individual company. So we'll be covering a methodology, role play, behavioral profiling, mindset, etc. For consultants that are on the line at the moment, remember today at 1 o'clock, we're also running a course on meeting clients and undertaking a client meeting. So if you want your consultants on that course, find, you should have an email in your inbox about that. It's up at 1 o'clock. But as we say, we want to grow our merry band of followers. So please follow us on LinkedIn. If you feel strongly about today's webinar, please post something on LinkedIn, whether it's positive or negative. Okay. It's feedback that we take, and it's feedback that helps us grow our business. And that's the first thing that Bullhorn said, that all clients, we should be looking for is research into your client base to find out what they're doing so you can actually supply what they want. So once again, thanks for your time. This has been Jump, empowering the recruitment leaders of today for tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this week.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Keep
you.
safe. Be well.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.